Welcome everyone to Chef Yaron Cooks. Today we are going over the Israeli staple shakshuka, and I'm here in the Stern Family Teaching Kitchen at Lay's Bernstein School of Culinary Arts. If you have any questions, you can write it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself, go ahead and ask a question. That's perfectly fine. I'm more than happy to answer as I'm going. And I'm just gonna start by saying that shakshuka is an easy dish. Like, you really wanna do it with whatever you have left at home. So it doesn't, yes, I gave you recipes here, but these are just kind of recipes to go off of. You don't have to always follow the recipe. So I probably won't make the shakshuka the same way twice. Each time it depends on how many onions I have, how many tomatoes I have, if I do have any regular tomatoes or not, if I have a lot of tomatoes that are gonna go bad, and peppers, I just put them all in there. Like, it's really just depending on what you have at home. You don't have to follow the recipe. The flavors will come and you'll see. You pretty much just put whatever ingredients you want in it, and it's, for the tomato one, the tomato based. And then we're gonna taste the seasoning and see and adjust it as we go. So I'm gonna get started with the tomato one. The tomato one is going to need a little longer to cook. I'm gonna let the sauce simmer a little bit. We want it to thicken up. You can also find recipes that have it more a stew kind of base, like chopped vegetables and not as much of a sauce. It really depends on what you like. It doesn't have to be very soupy. You can adjust it depending on what you like. So we're gonna start with the tomato one. You have both cameras. You have me in front of here, and you have our pots. You can see how it's cooking. And we're going to get started. Now, one of the more important things are usually when I am, sorry for the noise, usually when I am making shakshuka, when I start working on it, I pull the eggs out. You want the eggs to be either room temperature, or at least not right out of the refrigerator. It'll help them cook more evenly, instead of, if the eggs are still cold inside, you'll shock and you'll cook the outside, but it'll take it longer to cook for the rest of it. And also for the doneness of the eggs. Like, yes, I wrote in there that you want it to be firm, like set, but soft inside. If you don't like your yolks runny, you can cook it a little longer. You don't have to take it off and keep the yolks runny. If you like the yolks runny, then go ahead and just, as soon as you see that the eggs are the way you like them, stop cooking it and serve. So we're gonna start with the tomatoes. And so we're gonna do the tomato one on this. So we're gonna start with the olive oil, and I'm gonna do it here on the induction burners. And you are welcome. It's gonna cook hopefully just as fast. We're just avoiding the noise a little bit. So you want it to be about on medium heat. You can heat it up on high first, just to get the olive oil heated up faster, and then you can lower the temperature. And the first thing I'm going to cook is the onions. So here, if you don't have bell peppers, you don't have to use bell peppers. It's only if you have them. So what I have is I have the onions, and this is about one large onion. I have 3 garlic cloves. I have bell pepper. You can use whichever color you like. I have orange. You can use red. I usually use red. I have some 3 tomatoes cut. So I'm going to use both the fresh tomatoes, and I'm also going to use 1 small can of diced tomatoes. If you don't have fresh tomatoes, just use a larger can of diced tomatoes, or you can use just a little more sauce or puree. It really depends on what you like. Once I'm done with the tomatoes, I'm just going to keep the can. You can use that at home. If you're going to fill it with hot water, fill it in the can. That'll help wash it out. Also, if you're using the puree. So here we have paste. And also it'll help if you use the hot water to clean out the paste can, if you're going to use a small can of the paste. So I have a couple tablespoons of the paste, and we're going to add some jalapeno peppers. So we're going to add all of the fresh ingredients first, and we're going to make sure that they're soft. before we head on to the canned ingredients that don't need that much cooking. So the oil is nice and hot now. I'm gonna add the onions. And now I'm gonna do this on a bit of a higher temperature. So you need to make sure you stir it well. At home, what I like doing, I actually lower it to low heat because I like the onions to be really soft, but not, I want to cook them longer. It's like almost caramelizing them, but you're really just cooking them on a low heat until they're really soft and tender. So you can do it on a lower heat. It'll just take longer for them. Or you can do it on a higher heat. You just need to make sure you're constantly stirring it. And that also helps me. I'll do it on a low heat. That way, once my onions are cut and on there, I can start cutting everything else as it's cooking. I don't have to cut everything ahead of time and then start cooking. All right, so we're gonna cook that a little longer. All right, we want to give this a couple minutes to soften up. And we're going to do the same thing with the onions for the green shakshuka. So the green shakshuka isn't going to be tomato based. It's going to be, we're going to use chard and spinach. And you can play around with it too. You can use more spinach, more chard. You can add in some kale. You can add some red chard if you want. It really depends on the greens you want. All right. So we're gonna give this, see it needs a little longer. And then, so the jalapenos as well. You don't need to use them. I took out the seeds to make it a little less spicy, possibly. But you don't have to. It really depends on what you like. If you don't want it spicy at all, just don't add it. It doesn't need to be added for the flavor. So while I'm stirring this, I'm actually gonna talk to you a little bit about the different additional paprikas and peppers that you can add for the seasoning. So we have here, and I have Nicole on the camera for me, and I'm gonna just stir it with my other hand meanwhile. We have here a few options for you that I'm gonna use some of them today. So the regular paprika, this is what I'm using, and that's what I'm gonna give it for a little bit of flavor. Depending on how it is, I may add a little more. I always taste it when I'm done seasoning and add if I need. Cayenne pepper, that's gonna be spicy. So if you don't mind it being a little spicy, go ahead and add a little bit of cayenne pepper. Chili flakes, of course. Add those also if you want it spicy. If you don't have fresh jalapeno, you have these in your pantry, you can go ahead and use them. And then Aleppo pepper, that'll be a little spicy as well. So the paprika itself isn't spicy. It's just that smoked pepper flavor. It's not going to be spicy. So that's just going to give you that flavor without the spice.
Is the Aleppo pepper spicier than the cayenne?
I don't think so. I believe that the cayenne is spicier than the Aleppo pepper.
Interesting.
I've never done a dry taster. Maybe we'll have to try it someday. All right, so our onions are already they're sweating a little bit. They're getting a little softer. I'm gonna still be cooking it with the garlic and all the rest of the vegetables. So I'm gonna go ahead and add everything else, the next steps. So first we're gonna add the garlic. Now, if you don't have garlic, if you don't have fresh garlic, also you can use garlic powder. You don't have to use garlic. You don't have to use as much onion. It's really depending on what you like. I love onion and I love garlic, so I add a lot of them. And for the garlic, we're only doing this a little bit until we can start smelling it. And then I'm gonna add the peppers in. So I'm gonna add the jalapeno and the bell pepper. And we're gonna let this cook for a little bit, and then I'm gonna add the tomato. All right, so I'm gonna lower the heat here a little bit.
So colorful. Very colorful.
Yes. So you can either keep it all red things, or you can go ahead and add different colored items and make it more colors. You're eating more of the colors, which is always a healthier choice. So now you see the onions are also getting some of the moisture from the peppers, and it's helping soften them up. So I'm gonna cover this a little bit. I apologize, Nicole. I can smell that it's gonna be spicy. That's also a part of it. You never know how spicy the jalapenos are going to be. So we're gonna let that cook a little bit on low heat. I'm gonna set aside the rest of the ingredients for the tomato one, and I'm actually gonna start on the green one so that we can get that cooking as well. So for the green one, we're using the same base ingredients. So we have onion, olive oil, garlic. For this one, instead of the paprika for the seasoning, we're going to use za'atar. And then the greens that we're going to use, we have over here, we have the chard and spinach. All right, so I'm gonna heat up the olive oil for this. And we're gonna start cooking the onions for that as well. So I'm gonna go back and forth a little bit between the two, just so that at the end we have them both nicely cooked. I'm actually gonna take a different color so we can tell the difference. Let's do green for green and red for red. That'll be easy enough. All right, so we're gonna add the onions to this one. Get that cooking. So have any of you ever made shakshuka at home?
Feel free to unmute yourselves if you'd like.
No.
No?
Yeah? No, you haven't?
That was Avery and
Okay.
Nina.
So I don't know if you know this, but I grew up in Israel, and actually, the first time I had shakshuka was when I was in the army, and I was about 19 years old. But I think that once I had it once, I kind of got hooked. So it's definitely a staple dish in Israel.
I think the first time I had it was when I went on my birthright trip. And I thought, this is amazing.
Yeah. In Israel, like here, I feel like you have, they're like staple dishes that you'll have in every restaurant. Yeah. Like mozzarella sticks is an appetizer. Like you have that in every restaurant. Almost in every restaurant in Israel, you have shakshuka as an option. Any restaurant that serves breakfast as well will have shakshuka on the menu.
What bread do you prefer dipping it in?
What bread do you prefer dipping?
So we have here some challah that I made. That is actually traditionally the kind of bread that you will eat it in Israel. It will be kind of a challah. It'll be like a challah roll or something like that. You could dip pita, or Wholesome Choice has the sambak bread.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's always a good one as well here if you don't have any fresh challah. But I think that my first choice would always be challah. All right, so for the green one, we're gonna keep on cooking those onions. We want them to be nice and soft. For the tomato one, I'm gonna add the fresh tomatoes now, and we're gonna let that cook a little longer. And we're gonna want that to cook with the lid. And I'm actually going to turn the temperature up for that a little bit. You're gonna get all the liquids that are gonna come out from the tomatoes here. And you're gonna see it looks very colorful now. Actually, it's really colorful. But as soon as the juices from the tomatoes are gonna come out, it's gonna color most of it a little more red. We're gonna cover that and turn it up a little bit. All right. You can go ahead and use avocado oil if you prefer that. Avocado oil is good on high heat. I would not use extra virgin olive oil because
The smoke point.
the smoke point is going to be lower than the regular olive oil. I think those are two that I tried. Butter, obviously, but olive oil is better.
Ever tried a grapeseed?
Grapeseed would work too.
Yeah.
Grapeseed or avocado if you want to avoid the olive oil. All right, so we have this cooking. We're actually almost ready. It's getting nice and soft. And again, here as well, we're going to continue cooking it because we're going to be wilting all of the greens. So we're going to have a little bit of time as well. And you can see how the onion has gotten a lot smaller than what it was. So it looked like it was a lot of onion, but at the end of the day, it's really a good quantity. I like a lot of onion. Here. All right, and we're going to be adding all of those greens. So it's a lot of greens that's going to get added into this pan. We're gonna see how it fits.
I mean, it's amazing how like so much cooks down to so little.
Yeah.
Like this will be like 1 leaf of spinach by the end.
So for the spinach, I know that I wrote there between 250 and 300 grams. This spinach is really just 1 bag of spinach. So the 10-ounce bag is about 280 grams. Just go ahead and use that. You really don't need to weigh it or anything. It's just whatever bag you have, as long as it's not one of the big bags that you need to measure it out, just use that 1 bag. And then they have all the bags that are pre-washed a lot of times. This we had to wash and dry before we used it. All right, so the onion is looking good. We're gonna add the garlic to this one.
Smells good.
Want to get fragrant, and then we're gonna start adding the greens to it. I'm gonna lower the temperature a little bit. All right, so we have our spinach, and we have our chard. And I'm gonna start with the chard just because the spinach wilts faster. The chard is a little thicker, so that way we're not going to over wilt the spinach in the mixture. All right, just gonna check on the tomatoes. All right, hopefully we don't steam up the camera too much.
So good stuff. Good so far.
All right, that's looking good. We just want it to cook a little longer. I'm gonna turn up the temperature. All right, so we're gonna start adding this in batches. So I'm pretty much adding as much as I can to kind of fill it without dropping them when I try stirring. And you're gonna see that it's going to really wilt quickly, and it gets so much smaller. All right. Depending on the greens that you use, you can either mix them together to wilt it as a mixture, or you can do each green separately, whichever you choose. Just trying to get a little bit of space here. And if you have a large skillet at home, this is great to do if you have more people that you want to feed. You just make a bigger batch depending on what vegetables you have. I love making shakshuka for 8 people. Like I've had 10, 12, 16 eggs in this skillet. I feel like it's a great, great meal, especially for people that don't usually eat it, that don't know what it is. It's a great thing to introduce to people. All right, so that has wilted. We're gonna add a little more. And if you have one with higher size, obviously that would be better. I do have a few. I may switch it out. The only issue are that the ones I have are not made out of material that I can use on an induction burner. So we have to go with what we can use. So we're gonna hope that it all fit in. Make this work. So for the green one, what I'm going to do, because it's just wilted greens basically with a little bit of onion, I'm going to puree part of those greens. So after we add the za'atar, I'm gonna puree about a quarter of it. And we'll see how it looks. If I feel like I want to puree a little more, then we'll add a little bit more greens and puree a little more. It really depends on the consistency that you want. You don't really want to just be eating wilted greens with an egg on top. All right, so.
I love how versatile shakshuka can be. Like it's really just an everything dish.
It is. And so now I know that I wrote for you there to add what did we say to add? The parsley or cilantro on top. So we have parsley here that we're going to add. But I also have some feta cheese. That's great. That would be great both on the tomato shakshuka and on the green shakshuka. That adds a lot of flavor. You could add, what's the other cheese I said that we had?
Ricotta.
Ricotta. That would be good as well.
With toast. Yeah, fantastic. On a toast.
Yeah. So you could just sprinkle the feta on top together with the parsley or cilantro that you're going to add. You can add eggplant. There's a lot of different kinds of vegetables that you can add to it if you like. And here you can see how a lot of the chard, so here in the corner, it's some of the chard that has been there from the beginning. And so it's a lot more wilted as opposed to this chard that's just heating up and just getting wilted. All right. Keep on cooking that in batches. We should be able, we'll be okay. It'll just fit. So I'm not going to be adding the vegetable broth here. We're going to leave it without. But again, that's if you wanted a little more of a sauce, you'd add that, and then that'll help with the pureed greens as well. You can add a little bit of water if you don't want the sodium from the vegetable broth. So we're going to kind of play around with it, and if I feel like we need a little more, then we'll add a little more. All right, so this is looking perfect, the tomato one. You can see how the tomatoes are already all cooked and soft. The peppers are getting soft. The onions are perfect. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit more chard to the green so we can let that start wilting. We can add all the rest of this.
And now, you're not pureeing that?
I'm gonna puree some after, once it's
cooked.
Oh,
got it. Missed that.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to the tomato one. So for the tomato one, I'm gonna lower the temperature now. It was very hot because I wanted it to cook it nicely with the steam, the lid on. And I'm gonna add these canned diced tomatoes. Right, and we're gonna add the tomato paste. This is paste. Right, and usually when you're adding paste, you're going to need to add some water. I'm gonna mix it together and we're gonna kind of see how it looks. All right, and I'm gonna add the seasoning. So we're gonna add the paprika. And I'm gonna add salt and pepper. Okay, so I have the salt and pepper here for both. We're gonna mix that together. All right, and I can see I'm gonna need a little bit, for the way I like it, I'm gonna add a little bit of water. So I'm gonna get some hot water and we're gonna add that to it. It doesn't need to be hot water, but if you don't use hot water, it's just gonna take it longer to heat up again once you add it. All right, I'm just gonna give this a quick stir. All this juice is coming out. And we got room for the spinach now. Gonna make this work. All right, get some water, and I'm gonna put the hot water straight into this can. Shake it up, that way you get all the rest of the sauce or paste, whatever, off the sides of the can. Don't want to waste it. Okay, and we're gonna add just a little bit at a time. And I'm still gonna let this simmer for a little bit, so it's still going to thicken a little bit. So this isn't gonna be the end consistency. All right, that's looking good. I'm just gonna stir that in. All right. That just in case. And now the last thing that we're still gonna do before we let this simmer is I'm going to taste it and I'm gonna see the flavor, and then if I feel like we need to add anything, I'm gonna add a little bit. All right, so give this a stir. And we've got spoons here. All right, so give it a stir, taste that.
Is it spicy?
It's spicy. All right.
You need water?
No, I'm fine. But it's spicy. All right. I'm actually going to add a little bit more paprika. I don't want the spice, I don't want the heat, but I do want the flavor. And I'm actually going to add a little bit. I'm gonna add a little bit of sugar. So a lot of times for tomato sauces, there's sugar in the recipe, and that's because tomatoes can be acidic and sour. And so usually you'll see in a tomato sauce, you'll see that you have like a teaspoon of sugar. So I'm gonna add a little bit of sugar here and a little bit more salt and pepper just to even out that flavor. All right, let's put some more spinach in here. Get that going. And we want a little bit more salt. Pepper. And sugar. Right, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of sugar. Mix that up, and I'm gonna taste it one more time just to make sure before I let it simmer. Anyone have any questions in the meanwhile?
Is anyone cooking along with us, or are you just observing and then plan on cooking later? cooking along. Oh, Avery and Dina are cooking along.
Amazing. Which one are you doing? The tomato one or the green one?
Tomato with the jalapeno.
Perfect. All right. So I'm going to lower this temperature a little bit.
She said, haha, no, Avery's 8. She'll go for that. I'm 34 and I won't go for the heat.
All right, I'm going to cover this and I'm going to let it simmer for a little longer. I want the sauce to thicken up a little bit. And that'll cook while we're finishing up this one. And that way we'll do the eggs for both at the same time. All right, we're almost done adding the spinach here. Everything is almost wilted. And you can see, like, if you wouldn't puree it, it's really just a thick wilted grains with eggs on top. I've seen recipes for the green shakshuka that add some lemon juice, if you like that combination. Some add a little bit of half and half to make it a little creamier and a sauce consistency. And we're gonna start by pureeing about 1/4 of it and then stir it up and see how it's looking and maybe add a little bit of water to that. And
there's a question.
Yes.
If you know, do you know what the origin of shakshuka is?
I don't.
I mean, it's Middle Eastern. Is it mostly Middle Eastern?
I really know it from Israel. Elisa, how about you Google it?
Oh, our good friend Google.
So I told you, the first time I had shakshuka was when I was in the Army pretty much, and I was about 19 years old, 19 or 20. And then I went to culinary school in the United States. And part of the education, we worked in the cafe, and I was in a baking pastry degree. And we worked both back of the house and front of the house, and I was put on the station to make breakfast. And we were supposed to come up with a dish that we wanted to make. And I was like, perfect. Why don't I do shakshuka? So I actually, no one knew what it was. And I remember they put it like on the board with the menu, and people were asking like, what is that? They didn't even know how to pronounce it. But I had made like a big batch of sauce. And then I just, per order, I cooked the sauce. It was all cooked, all ready to go. And per order, we would just heat it in individual cast iron skillets, crack the egg on top, put it through the moving oven that kind of cooks the egg from the top. And that's it. So if you want to do it for the individual party and you don't really want, to serve it in a bowl, you have like individual cast irons you want to use. You can make the sauce separately and then transfer the sauce into the individual containers. If they're oven safe, crack one egg into each one, put it into the oven, not too close so that the eggs won't overcook. And that's it. And you can't have it, just the dish is going to be hot, but you have individual shakshukas that are great to present for guests. All right, so we have this all cooked, and I think Elisa's ready with the origin for us.
The answer is traditional shakshuka originally comes from North Africa. Tunisia is said to be the place of its birth.
Interesting.
And it's quite popular in the Middle East, Israel and Egypt specifically. And let's see what else. Jonathan agrees that it originated out of North Africa.
Interesting.
So,
all right. Okay, so this is ready. I'm going to lower this as well a little bit. Oh, we need to add the za'atar before. So the reason I'm adding the za'atar before is just to get it a little more dispersed in everything. So it's also going to be in the blended part. The rest of the seasoning we'll add a little bit later once it's mixed together. Also because the za'atar does have some saltiness to it, so I don't want to add too much straight away. So we're going to just get that mixed a little bit. And you see, it looked like so much, and it's the perfect amount for this pan. I wasn't sure it was gonna fit. All right, so.
You planned it so well.
All right, so we're gonna take some of this and put it in the blender.
Do you want a spoon? Oh, interesting. They said she was speaking with someone in Mexico, and they said they have something very similar there. They thought it might have come from Spain, which is influences from North Africa, and that does make sense. I mean, there was also
What was it called in Mexico?
I'm trying to think if there's like a name I know of.
All right, we're gonna make noise for a second. All right, so this is very thick, and so I'm gonna add a little bit of water directly into this, just to, all right. And this is just kind of as much as I would have put the vegetable broth. All right. And we're gonna pour this back in.
Oh yeah.
All right. Get that stirred together. Mexican shakshuka uses meat. Yeah, we don't put meat in ours. The one thing we don't use.
Yeah.
All right, this is looking perfect. So it needs that 1/4 cup of liquid in it. Of course, if you want it to be a little more, you can add more to it. Let's set this aside and taste. All right. So I haven't added any salt and pepper yet.
I wonder if something like pesto could be added to the green shakshuka.
Oh, of course. Definitely.
What did your culinary classmates think of the shakshuka?
Oh, everyone loved it. I think they even brought it back after I graduated. They did it again with another student that was in there. They liked it so much. All right, taste it. I think I'm gonna add more salt. Thank you. All right, give this a taste. So we're gonna add just a tiny bit more salt. I already know it's gonna be fine after this. All right. And next is going to be adding the eggs. So we're going to add the eggs for both dishes. And it's very important that you cook the eggs with the lid on. All right. Just mix that a little bit over. Okay. So for this one, because it's so much thicker, I can actually just make the dents in it and ahead of time. We're gonna do 5 eggs in this. So I do 5. Okay, now I've lowered the temperature here. I want it to be hot, but I don't want it to be, I'm actually going to let this cook. So I want it to be hot, but I don't want it to be too hot so that it kind of sears the outside of the egg, but not cooking the whites enough. So I'm putting this on low heat to cook the egg. So we're gonna let this heat up a little bit more, and I'm gonna crack a few eggs into the red one. All right, so if you're afraid that you may get eggshells, go ahead and do it into a separate bowl, and then you can pour them in one at a time. I'm just gonna crack them in. So and we're gonna put the lid on that. I'm gonna lower it a little bit more because I can see it bubbling really hard. All right, now for this one, okay, we can see that it's bubbling now as well. I'm gonna add the eggs. Okay, we're gonna cover this one up as well. And it's always a little bit easier if you have a lid that is see-through. You can kind of see how the eggs are looking. You can at least make sure that the egg white is cooked. That's usually what I aim for. I want the egg white to be cooked. I don't like the egg white to be runny. And the yolk, you want it to still be a little bit runny. So we're gonna get some plates ready. All right, so we're gonna get the plates ready. For these two different ones, I'm gonna get 2 spoons. And for decorating here, we're gonna have some parsley. And I'm just gonna take some of these leaves off, and I'm gonna just tear them with my hand directly onto the dish. Okay, so you don't have to be fancy and start chopping it. It's really easy. All right, and all right, we have here some Israeli feta cheese. All right, we're gonna take that out of the basket. Yeah. All right, and I'm just gonna crumble that onto it as well. Okay, I can see the egg whites are cooking. I don't want to open it too much. I don't want to bother it from cooking. I will peek on these though. All right, they're still cooking. All right, so I'm gonna actually, let's get some of that ready in a bowl. All right, and grab a glove. And you know what, another thing, I'm actually gonna cut some avocado. You can add that on the side for the green shakshuka as well. While these eggs are still cooking, kind of a little bit of avocado. Dina, how is your shakshuka coming? How's it looking?
Smells amazing.
House always smells amazing from it. I love it. All right. Please send us pictures when you're done. I want to see how it looks.
Dina, my daughter's name is Avery too.
Right, and let's get this avocado.
That made Avery very happy to hear. It's a wonderful name.
It really is. I can't name my daughter Avery now.
Sorry. I mean, you could.
I'll probably use it as your name anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm carefully slicing the avocado while I'm holding it. I don't want to pierce through the skin because I'm holding it in my hand, but I'm just gently, I can feel the skin and I'm just gently cutting across it. You can also use a butter knife if you want, that's fine. So I've sliced it completely and then we can just use a spoon and scoop it out directly from the skin. As much as you want, so you don't have to use the whole thing. All right, and these are looking great. This one still needs to cook, but the tomato one is looking great. It's still a little bit runny, so we're gonna put it up a little higher and give it just a little longer to cook. But it's looking great. So we're just gonna take a couple more minutes. We have our avocado here already. We have our parsley rating, our feta cheese. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, and our bread to serve. All right. Does anyone have any other questions?
Or you can show us what you're cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you'd like to. Oh, look.
Oh,
beautiful. It looks fantastic.
All right, and I'm just slightly shaking the pan. That's what I keep on doing, just to kind of see how set the egg whites are. I want the yolks to still be runny, but I want to make sure that the egg whites are cooked.
Would you put shakshuka in like the top list of your favorite Israeli dishes to
Oh,
cook?
definitely.
Maybe number one?
I love making shakshuka. And I love eating shakshuka.
I like eating shakshuka.
Let's see. Okay, so you can see the egg whites are all cooked. It's not runny. All right, so we're gonna turn that off. I'm gonna go ahead and plate one of these.
Oh my goodness.
Egg. All that sauce. I usually do a nice amount of sauce and then either 1 or 2 eggs per person. There are people that also just like the sauce and don't want the egg.
Well, it's perfect for dipping too. Like,
yeah. I'm gonna do a nice presentation. Right. All right, we have our green one. All right, and this one looks perfect too. All right. Okay. Put that here as well. Feta cheese, and we're gonna get slices of avocado.
Pretty.
All right, we have our 2 shakshukas.
I'm gonna come around this side so everyone can see.
Not gonna have Nicole taste the red one. It's definitely too spicy for her.
No, I won't do it.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed. Does anyone have any other questions? We can, I can keep the screen going.